Before and during the development of Pokémon Black and White, the game's director, Junichi Masuda, visited New York City and was fascinated by it. Interviews and posts such as this one from his blog on the Game Freak website prove that Masuda based the Unova region of Pokémon Black and White upon the New York City metropolitan area, and adapted real elements of New York directly into the game world. To increase fan awareness and appreciation of some of these similarities, I've gone in person to explore locations in the New York City metropolitan area that are analogous or similar to locations found in the Pokémon Black and White games and anime, and share what I've discovered. In this episode, I'm going to take you to the real-world parallel of the airport at which Ash arrived in Unova in the first episode of the Pokémon Black and White anime, and retrace his journey to Nuvema Town via a scenic connecting parkway used in the anime which also exists in real life. Then we'll drop into Nuvema Town's real-world twin and note the precious few similarities and many major differences between them. To fully appreciate this installment of Real Unova, I strongly suggest that you first watch the first episode of the Pokémon Black and White anime titled In the Shadow of Zekrom, as the locations discussed in this video will be primarily derived from that episode. Being familiar with the anime, we know that Ash arrives in Unova on board a seaplane that docks at an airport near Nuvema Town that isn't featured in the games. Using this map for comparison, we can see that Nuvema Town is analogous to the southern end of Brooklyn, but where could the airport be? The largest and nearest airport in New York City proper, JFK, would be located to the far north of the bay, nowhere near the equivalent of Nuvema Town. LaGuardia Airport would be even further away, and according to the game map of Unova, would actually be in the equivalent location to the Pokémon League. The next airport after that is in Teterboro, New Jersey, which in the game is home to Mistaltron City and its airport-themed Pokémon gym. So what happened? Did the animators just make up a fictional airport with no real-life parallel for the convenience of writing the episode? Maybe, but maybe not. The footage you're seeing is of another airport in New York City, one that was once used by the likes of Howard Hughes and Amelia Earhart. It hasn't served as a municipal airport for decades, but it's still intact, and now it's part of the U.S. National Park Service. The airport is Floyd Bennett Field, a 5-minute drive from the equivalent of Nuvema Town, which once hosted airplanes and small seaplanes, providing a direct basis for Ash arriving via seaplane in the anime. The yellow exclamation marks in this photo signify the location of Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn, and the equivalent location to where it would have been featured in the game map of Unova. The blue number 1s marked on each map represent the equivalent location of Nuvema Town, and as we see, they correspond excellently. For the sake of fun, I took this historical poster which mentions Floyd Bennett Field and turned it into a poster for the airports featured in Unova in the games and the anime. After an encounter with Team Rocket, who are now awesome, competent, and wear black uniforms, Professor Juniper arrives to give Ash, his mom, and Professor Oak a ride to Nuvema Town along a scenic parkway. The route they would have taken from the airport to Nuvema Town is highlighted here in red, both on the Unova map and the real-world map. The interesting parallels to be found here are derived in part from the limited resources the artist would have had to work from. The location parallels between Floyd Bennett and the airfield in the cartoon are very strong, and the Pokémon animation team is known to have done first-hand research when planning scenes based on real-life locations, such as Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and even parts of Brooklyn in episodes that appear later in the Pokémon Black and White anime. A brief Wikipedia search about the area local to the real Nuvema Town would have made the researchers aware of Floyd Bennett Airfield, and would have given them these two photographs used in the Wikipedia article about the real-life parkway that connects the real Nuvema Town and the actual airport. We'll get back to them later. For now, let's hop in Professor Juniper's Jeep and retrace Ash's journey from the airport where he arrived in Unova to the nearby town where Juniper's lab is located. artists done even minimal research on Wikipedia, they would have immediately seen this public domain photo of the very location where we're now driving, not at all unlike what's seen in the episode. While the area surrounding the parkway is explicitly urban, it's also immediately adjacent to a wildlife reserve and other parkland, which includes the airport grounds we just left. Even though scenes like this aren't generally associated with New York City, the greenery and wildlife depicted in this scene in the anime actually does have a basis in reality. At one point during the driving scene, the Jeep rounds a corner, revealing a body of water where a swan is arrested, and across the water you can see a landmass. Let's drive a bit further and see if the real-life parkway provides a similar view to the anime screen caps. And indeed it does. The fact that the scene in the anime closely resembles yet another public domain photograph of this same route, which the animators could have easily found had they done a Wikipedia search on the real area that they would have been drawing. Of particular interest is that landmass across the water in both the photograph and in the anime screen cap of the potentially corresponding scene. If they're driving along the southeast coast of eastern Unova, according to the official map, there shouldn't be any land across the water. Yet if we look at a real map of Brooklyn, we find that there really is land that would be visible across the water from that vantage point, exactly as seen in both the possible source photograph and in the anime screen cap. To me, this suggests that they might have referenced photographs from the Wikipedia article on this real parkway as source material for the driving scene in the Pokémon anime. To illustrate where this land would be were it included in a map of Unova, I photoshopped together this fan map that extends to the east of what's seen in the game. I've also circled the potentially corresponding details and then related them to how they would sync up had what they animated appeared on a map of Unova. As for Coney Island, which is the geographical analog to Nuvema Town, there aren't many similarities. Some areas resemble a very brief, very generic street seen in the first episode of the anime where two kids chase a Minccino down the sidewalk, but that's a humongous stretch to say the least. However, when exploring Nuvema Town in the game, and when looking at official artwork, you can see a pier-like area overlooking the water. This, likely by coincidence, is reminiscent of an area immediately local to Coney Island called Sheepshead Bay, which you see here. The most defining features of Coney Island are the complete antithesis of what's seen in Nuvema Town both in the games and anime, and will more than anything else resemble scenes from Nimbasa City, which will provide the setting for our next episode of Real Unova. I hope this journey enhanced your enjoyment of the Pokemon world and our own real world, and thank you very much for watching.